Happy to check in with Quincy Ward 2 City Councilor Brad Kroll and find out how life is going at the Kroll household and in Ward 2. Hey, Brad, good to virtually chat with you.
Good morning, Joe. Great to see you. Sincerely. It's probably one of the biggest things that I missed from council presidency is our download after the meeting, that early morning sort of recap or cup of Joe.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be able to do it for sure. And can we ask you a little bit about how your life is going right now during these unprecedented times?
Yeah, it's like everyone else, it's a day at a time. It certainly has changed. We're both my wife and I, we're both still working our day jobs. Obviously, our children are home, so it's like brings a whole new level to that statement of work-life balance. We're trying to keep our children, engaged in the curriculum that their schools are doing, obviously virtually through Zoom, while maintaining what we do in the daytime. So it's certainly been interesting. But one positive thing that's really come out of it, and I hear this from quite a few people, is like the bonding opportunity. We're all in close quarters in the same house, basically 24 hours a day. And, my children are younger, so it's really afforded us just kind of an opportunity to grow closer together and to get really, really creative in what we do with the kids to keep them occupied, So,
what are some of the things that you've done? I'm sure other parents are looking for ideas and suggestions to fill the time.
We've been taking, I would love to know the miles that we've logged walking through Faxon Park, both like the Red Diamond section, which is where all the, the ball games and the playground, although you can't go to the playground, that side, as well as the Blue Diamond, which is kind of like an offshoot. And I just became aware of, actually, since the pandemic hit. So we've done a ton of hikes. Again, we're, obviously engaged in the curriculum that my oldest PJ has to do during the daytime, but just trying to get creative with different like science projects and math stuff that we can kind of do to obviously we're not educators, but we do a lot of online research to try to come up with practical things to help grow their educational base. And it's tough, right? I mean, young kids, they want to be out running around with the kids in the neighborhood, and it's certainly presents challenges.
Yeah, I see one of the science experiments right there on your face.
It's true. Yeah, that's the science part of STEM, right? So I guess if it keeps going, it'll be a zoology lesson at some point, right? So it keeps, sort of a running joke that I started with, and keeps things light in the house. The kids tease me all the time. My wife, ironically, likes it, so I don't know how this plays out, right? Okay. Happy wife, happy life. So
stay tuned. We'll see the many faces of Brad over the next year.
Yeah, isn't that for sure? Yeah, so it's trying to stay positive, trying to stay creative, and trying to stay as plugged in as possible to what's going on here locally, so that I can be a resource. Obviously, the kind of constituent interface has really changed. From my perspective, it's become, I don't want to say more proactive, because I've always tried to be a proactive city councilor, but like calling around to the senior buildings, to check in with certain folks that are, managing the tenant associations and councils, just to see like what's going on, how's everybody doing, like, is there anything we can do to help? I know that there's been a tremendous amount of outreach from nonprofit organizations, so I'm trying to see what we could do to help them as well. It's not only an interesting time in like the house, it's just an interesting time in the economy. So really trying to just stay dialed in as virtually as possible, which sounds like a conundrum.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as you mentioned, you've got a lot of senior housing in Ward 2. There's some public housing as well, where there's been some concerns. So I know you're keeping in touch on those fronts as well.
Yeah, and I read that article the other day, that gentleman from the Residents Council. I don't know if he was soliciting them from people making them or purchasing them, but getting masks for the tenants inside of the the densely populated senior buildings. I thought that was great. Amidst this crisis, it's really brought up an opportunity just to see like kindness and goodness from people in general. I know up here in my neighborhood, I actually live up by Faxon Park. They've done like art, like chalk displays. I feel it was like chalk the walk, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
Lines. So everyone throughout, Penns Hill went out, did kind of like an art project with sidewalk chalk with their kids, with their families. And then, the Pennsville Neighborhood Association put together a map, and obviously being socially distant was priority number one, but people were able to just kind of get out, God is good, right? Because that particular day, the sun was shining.
Yeah.
We just got to get out, kind of wave at our neighbors and try to be as normal as you can be given the the current state. So
right. Yeah.
I've seen random acts of kindness too. I've seen a lot of those, and those are the best kind.
Yeah. Of course, the small business community is being hard hit. What are you hearing some of your business folks in Ward 2?
Yeah, it's certainly been interesting. I know that if you go and you purchase your coffee, right, like just the way that you even go and do that now has certainly evolved. I think the small business community is literally doing everything that they can. If you're a full service restaurant, obviously you've moved now more to sort of the takeout model, which, we hope that people continue to support, because left to its own devices, it becomes hard to be sustainable in this market. I know there's been, several programs rolled out locally. I do give a lot of credit to the mayor to try to, in his attempt to be creative, to help the local economy, through this tough time. I believe that there's another program coming down the pike, maybe even today,
yes,
that will be targeted more. I'm sorry?
Yes, that's true. There'll be an announcement at 12:15 today at City Hall. Yeah. So that's,
I believe that targeted more to like, I don't want to say the micro small business, but the smaller of the small business.
Mm-hmm.
Some financial opportunities that exist. So I know Quincy's been hard at work to just, try to be supportive and keep people going during this time.
Yeah. Are you concerned, it's getting into the budget season now, and I know that's a priority with you always, in terms of, revenue projections and kind of angsting to put together a new spending package for July 1.
Right. So my understanding is, like, typically a budget has to be presented and passed within a certain time frame. My understanding is, I haven't seen it like point blank, but my understanding is like the time frame is going to be a little fluid, just given all that is going on. And I think not only unique to Quincy, but most cities and towns, we're trying to figure out what our revenue sources are going to look like from the state, not just locally. Mm-hmm. And I think that will obviously be a huge indicator as to, what the budget may or may not look like. That was when this pandemic hit. From a city council perspective, acting in my capacity as a city councilor, that's where my brain goes to, is like, a financial update, a financial forecast. Because my own opinion is, we can feel the effects now. It's kind of funny because my day job, I work with, retirement plans, so pension plans and 401ks, and they're obviously tied to the market. So I'm dialed into the market, and a lot of what's taking place in the market really isn't articulating itself into much sense, quite frankly. And I think you'll start to see more of that as we progress through earnings season. However, my concern is maybe not, this quarter or next quarter, but like the next year, right? When states start to really open up and get back, and I mean, the jobless numbers are the jobless numbers, like what ultimate effect are we going to feel here locally? And I think a lot of that is still yet to be determined. So when I started, asked to kind of peel back the onion on, what we were thinking financially, I know it's a fluid conversation, and a lot of it's sort of unknown at this point, but I just think it's something that we need to be, ultra dialed into, because we just don't know.
Sure. Yeah. Is the city, are there some reserves that city could tap into? I mean, for emergency purposes, if need be, Brad?
Yeah. I mean, as part of the budget, there's always a stabilization fund. I'm not so sure, and I get it. It's, a quote rainy day fund, but, if you can sort of position yourself up front, maybe there's an opportunity to mitigate having to use that. I mean, there's some talks around, subsidy from the CARES Act coming to, city in some capacity, which would augment, maybe some of the shortages of revenue that we're seeing. So I believe there's a lot of things in play. It's just trying to tie it all together. Mm-hmm. And, look, when you look at, the stuff that I read, just, I don't know, that again, it deals a lot with my day job, and that's just what I've been trained to do. Mm-hmm. In the services industry, like I read those credit analyst reports, and I know that one of the things that they always, are very interested in seeing is your ability to basically put money away in a rainy day fund. Like that's attractive to a credit rating agency, which, as you know, controls your destiny when it comes to bonding. So, I think we're in a very unique time where, we're going to have to assess it as we determine sort of where the revenues are coming from or lack thereof.
Sure. Going forward, what are some of your kind of immediate goals on the council, just to get through this current fiscal year, and dealing with your colleagues?
Well, I think, we have basically another 2 months. So I think we want to make sure that we're able to sustain what we're already committed to for the fiscal year, right? And then, identify again. So the way that it works, as you know, is, the administration essentially sets priorities through the budget and is presented to the city council. City council doesn't have the capacity to add to the budget. They can only subtract or, pass as presented. Those are the options. So I think it's, just working with everybody to see sort of where we're at financially. Can we cover our bets, which I think we can this year? And then obviously start to dive into next year as to what that may look like. To be determined at this point.
Right.
At the council, I mean, again, at this juncture, I believe the budget's always, I don't know why I think this, but I always feel like it's presented the first week in May. So that would be this week, but due to the time frame being extended, through no one's fault, honestly. We're just trying to figure out, like, what is and what isn't, what's coming and what isn't.
Right.
And, it takes time when you're running at this time, $330 million enterprise, I believe is what the budget was.
Yep.
Roughly. Yeah. So more to come. And I know there'll be some substantive discussions. It's obviously something that, I've always we all have a unique set of skills and experiences that we bring to the council. And, I've always kind of thought myself as I've really pushed myself to get a firm understanding of budgetary matters and financial stuff. So hopefully I can, add to the discussion and, look, during this time, we want the best for everybody. We really do. Quincy does a phenomenal job of delivering services. I talk to other city councilors throughout Norfolk County, and, it just reaffirms that we do a lot when it comes to delivering a residential service experience. And, I'm proud of that, proud to be a part of that for sure.
I can't help but think that the program that you helped start over the wintertime with the high school seniors helping shovel driveways might be put into play somehow during this current situation. Have you heard anything about that?
No, the only thing that I heard of, right, like quite frankly, you introduce a program that deals with snow, and it's like I think the first time we've had a major surplus in the snow and ice budget. So,
Yeah.
There you go. It was. I mean, I still think it's a program that has merit and will continue to avail itself. It's like one of those things in a tough situation where there's this, several inches of snow that's created a hardship for people. You want to be able to provide a solution. But I can't tell you that I was losing sleep at night knowing that we did, I don't think I turned my snowblower on once this year. So, it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
Bittersweet. But again, I mean, that's a story of a program of, many people coming together to make it happen. Couldn't say enough about, the cooperation from Dr. D and Quincy Public Schools, to really get that thing off the ground. And quite frankly, I've gotten several inquiries from people, more in Barnstable County, believe it or not, that have reached out. Hey, this is it's a pretty interesting program. Can you tell us sort of how it works, best practice? And it's something that we're looking at internally to roll out. So, I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah. It's, traditional graduations this year look doubtful. If you could, Brad, what would be kind of your message to today's, graduating high school seniors? I know typically you stand on the podium at Veterans Stadium and able to chat with them there, but here's your opportunity. What would you say to them?
That's President Liang's job.
Well, when you were president.
Huh?
When you were president.
Yeah, but president in recovery.
Yes.
I mean, I would just say that the amount of resiliency that people have been able to gain over the last couple months just by having to deal with this new normal, I just have to believe in some form of fashion is going to A, make everybody stronger, and B, put them in a position to, once we get back to a level of normalcy, to be in a better position to just kind of move forward. Whether you're continuing on to higher education or going into the workforce, tough times are tough, but I also think that they do make people stronger. I'm not so sure like how that will articulate itself at this point, but it's just my gut. And in some cases, it's my own experience, right? So press on, really. Press on.
I understand that the work on the compressor station is still ongoing, and there are some questions about safety around that too. What have you heard?
Yeah, they're real good corporate citizens, right? Employing social distancing in a time where it matters most. Obviously, that's not happening at the compressor station, which is too bad. My understanding is the governor, in not so many words, had said that, that's they have to abide by the rules, and that they're in a position where compliance can be enforced on them. So I know that there's essentially a petition floating around right now to kind of further say to the not only to the developer or applicant, whatever you want to call them, but like to everyone. Like, this is just unacceptable. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. Shouldn't be doing this. I mean, my own opinion, shouldn't be doing it anyways, because there's no beneficiary locally. No gas company, the consumers, nothing. I mean, the only people that benefit is Canada, right? So that's sort of one. Two, I guess we will see sort of how it kind of comes to pass with, whether or not they authorize a shutdown of the site. I don't know. Doesn't seem like there's a huge appetite at this point.
Yeah. I had read in your newsletter not too long ago that you're still moving forward with plans to renovate the Fore River Clubhouse.
Yeah. So right as the pandemic was hitting, literally like several days before, I had a meeting down at Fore River with both Commissioner Murphy and Commissioner Hines from Public Buildings, just to sort of see where our head's at. Because when you think about it, like spring activity down the floor of a clubhouse really increases. Not only do you have exercise groups and the folks, the Council for the Blind, Peg O'Connor, and the great work she does down there, but like now you have recreation and summer lunch programs. So it's like, how do you be mindful of all the activity going through there and try to create a situation where it's not fully disrupted, but also like knowing it's work that has to get moved on. And a large component of it makes a lot of sense is to replace the roof, right? So anything that you do inside, unless you have a solid structure starting at the top, it's sort of all for nothing. So we spent some time like examining the eaves, which were kind of fascinating, looking at how that building was constructed and sort of what the prospect would be to upgrade the facility. I think there's a determination of spraying closed cell insulation into the eaves, obviously to make it not only soundproof and weather tight, but also to help us kind of work through the replacement of the roof, I guess you would say. So those are the first two items that should be rolling. Obviously things have kind of slowed down a little bit, but they were slated to probably be underway right now. So I would think, Commissioner Hines had the bid out. I believe he actually had, everything situated in terms of who was going to do the work. It was just a matter of executing. Obviously timetables get a little, they deviate
right
in this environment.
Yeah.
We're looking at that. We're looking at, some reconstruction just with the larger room to create, more like room space, if you will. It's a huge, like open room. And my understanding is, wild as it is, it was once a bowling alley and you can kind of see it for that.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Well, if you think about it, it was essentially a recreation center for, the people who worked World War II over at the shipyard.
Sure.
So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
But one of the thoughts is like, how do we make it not only more of a welcoming space, but like a space that can be utilized? And one of the thoughts that I had early on and had some really great conversations with Mayor Koch was developing this sort of satellite senior center and creating programming up this end of the city. Obviously, Joe, you mentioned it. I have a lot of, high density senior buildings, so large complexes right in the area, walk distance. And I know that a lot of these folks, may not have the ability or transportation to get down to the Kennedy Center, which is another wonderful place. So creating sort of a point of entry that's a little more accommodating to folks at this end of the city. And we're starting to kind of work through a plan on what that would look like. Right. And the thing is, if you aim small, because it's all about sort of participation, we kind of aim small on this. There's room for expansion. Right. So we kind of want to see sort of what is the opt-in rate? How many people want to utilize the services that we bring there? And then there will obviously be room for expansion. But it's so funny when you think about it. It's like a home project. You kind of get into, an idea of what you want to do. And then when you start opening up walls, sometimes there's the unknown, right? So that totally shifts your budget.
Especially in a 100-year-old building, right?
Especially in a 100-year building. I mean, some of the stuff that was pointed out to me, I couldn't even believe. And I just, again, want to take a moment and thank all the corporate sponsors who had donated a lot of, whether it's financial resources or the hard material to do pretty much the entire exterior renovation. We have new board on there, new windows. Like you drive by there right now, it is definitely not the clubhouse of 2 years ago. Yeah. And I'm proud to say that because again, many hands make for light work. And that was the story there. It was the community rallying together, the business community as well, and getting it done. So once we progress through this, I'm looking forward to working with, my peers, my other elected officials, as well as the community. And, hopefully putting this one in the end zone,
Sure.
with an interior there, because the building deserves it. The people in the area love the space.
Yep.
That's one thing. Like, Joe, living in the city,
Yep.
either you have the space or you don't. And the space is there. It just needs to be sort of rebooted. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's great. Something to look forward to. I think people need the few things to look forward to right now, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add right now, Brad?
No, I just again want to thank people for their kindness throughout this tough time. As I say, when I talk to people on the phone and when I send out an email, like I'm always available. I know it's my job, but I just feel like I need to say that, maybe even more so now than ever. If there's anything I can do to help anybody out there, my contact information is available on the city website, and happy to do it. I do think the city's definitely put its best foot forward. The communication program coming out of the administration office has been quite impressive with daily updates. And we're going to get through this. We're all in it together, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to come out stronger. So appreciate everything that you do, Joe, to kind of keep the needle moving and using your medium to keep folks informed. I know you have quite a following, so always a pleasure to see you. And thank you again.
You're very welcome. Thank you for those kind words. And if we can do anything else here at QATV, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll make it happen for you.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Be well.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.